The prairie was silver that night, a wide, breathing ocean under a high, unblinking moon. Eli McGraw rode at an easy lope, his horse's hooves making a steady whisper against the hard earth. He kept his hat brim low against the wind, not because the air stung, but because a man who's spent too long with his own thoughts doesn't like the sky seeing too much of him. In the distance, a faint smear of smoke smudged the horizon. It clung close to the ground, strange for a night without wind. He slowed, the horse's breath puffing white in the cold, and caught something else, a sound half swallowed by the hush. Not the coyotes, not the restless creak of mesquite. Human, small, frayed at the edges. He nudged the horse toward it, each step softer than the last. When the campfire came into view, it wasn't a camp so much as a careless claim on stolen ground. 2 men crouched near the flames, their shadows stretching tall and ugly across the dirt. Between them, 3 girls sat bound at the wrists, their dark hair tangled, faces streaked with dust and ash. The oldest stared straight at the fire, eyes hard as river stones. The middle one's gaze darted, searching for an opening that didn't exist. The smallest shivered, clutching something, maybe a doll, tight against her chest. Eli knew the trapper's type. Men who saw the world in terms of what they could take, and how long they could keep it before someone bigger came along. They were drunk on their luck, the kind of drunk that made them laugh loud enough to dare the night to answer. He could have turned away. Should have, maybe. But something about the oldest girl's stillness, a refusal to beg, lodged deep, and it was enough to shift the balance. He dismounted, letting the reins fall, and walked into the firelight. Evening. His voice was steady, almost casual, as if greeting strangers at a bar. The men froze, eyes narrowing. "Don't recall inviting company," one said, hand drifting to the rifle at his knee. Eli stepped closer. "Then let's call it a courtesy visit. I'll take the girls, you'll keep your skins, and we'll all sleep a little easier." They laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. One reached for the youngest girl, jerking her upright as if to prove a point. Eli's hand went to his own rifle. The first shot cracked the silence wide open, not aimed to kill, but high, splintering a branch over their heads. The fire spat sparks, the horses tethered nearby shied and snorted. "You aiming to die over squaws?" the taller man sneered. Eli's eyes didn't leave his. "I don't aim to die tonight. But I will." Something in the flat certainty of his tone worked faster than the rifle. The men stepped back, muttering curses, deciding the trouble wasn't worth the haul. They melted into the dark, their boots fading into nothing. Eli cut the girl's bindings. The oldest helped the youngest to her feet, never looking at him, as if acknowledging his presence might cost too much. By dawn, the sky was a pale wash of gold. Eli rode with the girls into town, their silence pressing heavier than the chill. People noticed. They always did. Curtains shifted, boots paused mid-step, voices went low. Marshal Briggs was already waiting by the hitching post, thumbs hooked in his belt. "You've brought yourself a problem, McGraw," he said. "Best send 'em back where they came from." "They were taken," Eli replied. Briggs' expression didn't change. "And now they're here. You keep 'em, it's on you when their kin, or worse, comes calling." From the mercantile doorway, Clara May watched, her hands busy with a sack of flour she didn't need to fold twice. When Eli passed, she slipped a small loaf into his saddlebag without meeting his eyes. It was kindness wrapped in caution. Eli rode on, past the buildings until the land opened up again, to the small cabin he called home. It was a lean thing of weathered boards, the porch sagging just enough to speak of years without repairs. Inside, the air smelled faintly of pine from the logs he'd split the day before. He stoked the fire, poured water into a tin cup, and gestured for the girls to sit. The middle one, quick-eyed, stood in the doorway, following every move he made. The youngest sank to the rug, the doll still in her hands, its stitched face worn smooth. The oldest took the chair nearest the hearth, her back to the wall, gaze fixed on the window. She didn't flinch when his boots creaked past. Eli found bread in the cupboard, cut thick slices, and set them down with the care a man gives to something more fragile than it looks. No words came. Sometimes silence is the only language strangers share. That night the wind rose, rattling the shutters. Eli sat at the table with a cup of coffee gone cold, listening to the soft shift of breathing from the corner where the girls slept. The oldest wasn't among them. She stood by the window, a thin figure framed in moonlight. "You should rest," he said quietly. Her voice, when it came, was low but clear. "Our mother will come." He didn't ask when or how. Just nodded. "All right." She looked out into the darkness as if she could see her across the miles. "She will bring something for you." Eli almost smiled. "I don't need." "It's not for need," she said, and that was the end of it. He let the quiet settle again. Outside, the coyotes called, their voices carrying across the open plains. There was a weight in the air he couldn't name, part warning, part promise, like the moment before rain breaks when the sky holds its breath. Eli sat there until the fire burned low, until the moon tilted west, wondering whether the next knock at his door would be a blessing or a storm. Morning came wrapped in low clouds, the light muted to the color of pewter. Eli woke to find the cabin quiet in a different way, the kind that hums with expectation. The girls were outside, standing in a row with their faces turned east. Their hair lifted slightly in the breeze, and not one of them moved when he stepped onto the porch. Down the slope, a lone figure approached on horseback. The rider sat tall, unhurried, her fringed buckskin coat rippling faintly, long black braid glinting where turquoise beads caught the weak sun. She dismounted before reaching the yard, her boots finding the ground as if she'd known this place before. The girls broke formation and ran, the smallest leaping into her arms. The woman held them all at once, her face a still mask except for her eyes, which moved over each daughter as if to confirm they were whole. Then her gaze shifted to Eli. It was not gratitude or accusation, something deeper, older, a kind of appraisal. She closed the distance slowly, the girls clinging to her skirts, and when she spoke, the first words were in her own tongue, low and measured. Only after did she give him the English. "You found them." Eli nodded. "I found them. Took them from two men who—" "I know," she said, not unkindly, but with the finality of one who had already heard the story from more trustworthy lips. He felt the weight of her regard, how it pressed in without touching. Before he could frame another sentence, hoofbeats thudded from behind. Marshal Briggs reined in hard, dust swirling around his horse's legs. "McGraw," Briggs said, eyeing the scene. "That's her then? I'll be plain. Apache business has no place in this town. The quicker she leaves, the better for everyone." The woman, a Hiv, Eli guessed from the way the oldest girl had once murmured it in sleep, turned to Briggs without stepping aside. "Do you speak for the wind, Marshal? Or for the earth? No? Then you speak for nothing that can move me." Briggs flushed. "I speak for the law here." "You speak for fear," she said, and the air between them seemed to tighten. Briggs muttered something about trouble brewing and wheeled his horse away, his departure leaving only the sound of wind through the grass. Ahiv faced Eli again. In her hands she held something wrapped in soft, tanned deer hide. She extended it toward him. "This is for you." He hesitated, feeling the eyes of the girls on him. "You don't need to." "It is not about need." Her voice carried the same quiet authority her eldest possessed. He took the bundle and unwrapped it. Inside lay a necklace, claws of a mountain lion, each polished to a sheen, strung on a cord threaded with tiny silver beads. It felt alive somehow, as if it still carried the strength of the animal. Ahiv's gaze did not waver. "For the man who walks alone yet carries many." Eli closed the hide over it again, not sure what to say. "I'm no hero." Her mouth curved, not into a smile, but into something like recognition. "You stood between my daughters and those who would harm them. That is enough." Behind her, the middle girl, Tyanata, touched the necklace with a fingertip before drawing back as if it might burn. The youngest kept her eyes on Eli, unblinking. The wind shifted, bringing the smell of rain. Ahiv moved toward her horse, the girls following. She swung into the saddle with the grace of someone born to it. Nokos, the eldest, lingered a heartbeat longer, as if torn between the safety of her mother and something unnamed here. Marshal Briggs' voice carried faintly from somewhere near town. Eli could picture him already at the saloon, telling anyone who'd listen that McGraw had gone soft, that he was inviting danger over his threshold. Clara May would hear it, and so would the men who made their judgments over poker hands and whiskey. He'd be marked in their eyes now. Ahiv guided her horse forward, the girls' ponies following. But as she drew even with Eli, she reached down, her palm pressing flat against his chest. The touch was light, but it rooted him to the spot. "You have already chosen your side," she said. She let her hand fall and rode on. The sound of hooves faded, replaced by the soft patter of rain beginning to fall. Eli stood there, the bundle still warm from her hands. He went back inside as the rain picked up, pulling the door shut against the gray. The cabin felt different now, as though the walls had learned a new story and were keeping it. He sat at the table, laid the necklace before him, and stared at it. It was heavier than it looked. Through the open window came the smell of wet earth and mesquite. He could see the faint line of their trail vanishing into the plains. The town was behind him, its voices already turning his choice into a story they could pass around. Ahead was a wide land that did not care for those voices, a land where a man's worth was measured by the moments he chose to stand or turn away. He picked up the necklace and slipped it over his head. The claws rested cool against his chest, then warmed to his skin. Outside, the rain fell harder, washing the dust from the porch, blurring the edges of the horizon. He thought of Nokos' words the night before, "Our mother will come." She had, and she had left him with something more than a gift. It was a tether, invisible but sure, binding him to a choice he'd made without thinking, one he could not unmake. The rain's rhythm grew steady, filling the room with its patient song. Eli leaned back in the chair, eyes half closed, letting the sound settle into him. He could feel the shape of what lay ahead, though not the details. Trouble, certainly, and maybe worse. But also something else, a thread of meaning that made the trouble worth it. A coyote's cry rose in the distance, thin and lonely. Eli opened his eyes, looking east where the land stretched on without end. Somewhere out there, Ahiv and her daughters rode under the same rain, the same sky. He wondered if she felt the same pull he did, if she knew the path between them had not been closed, only lengthened. The wind shifted again, carrying the faintest scent of wood smoke, fresh, not from his own fire. It made him sit forward, listening. The sound was too far to place, but it was enough to remind him that nothing in this country stayed quiet for long. He stood, hand on the doorframe, watching the rain blur the world, and knew that whatever was coming would find him soon enough.